When we last left Private Walter Clark, he had just finished recuperating from wounds he received during the Battle of the Bulge. The war in Europe was now over, yet the war in the Pacific still raged on. And like many of his fellow soldiers, Walter worried about being sent to the Pacific Theater. Sometime around May of 1945, Walter was transferred to a replacement depot in Bayreuth, Germany, where he wrote this letter home to his wife and son. May 30th, 1945. Darling, I haven't been able to get a hold of a single airmail stamp since I wrote at Vilcek, and rather than send by regular mail, I'm still hopefully hunting and waiting to get my francs changed to marks, so I can buy some stamps. Can't even buy a beer without German money, although there's a plenty here. This is an interesting place, an estate on which there are two castles built in the 18th century. Inside, the walls are covered with elaborate murals, and the ceilings as well, and all trimmed with fancy gold-colored moldings. I guess they used to have plenty good parties here, with the great and near great flocking to the top. But the only Germans here today are POWs, and they ain't having a party. You've probably heard a lot about non-fraternization policy. The only reason it's working is that they won't let the guys out of camp. They even have a little cub plane flying around looking for GIs who might slip out through the fence. If it wasn't for this, there would be a lot of fraternizing. Personally, I have no desire to monkey around, but a lot of the guys feel differently. I'm still not back to my outfit, but at another replacement depot. Now believe I'll have to go to Austria to find them. The weather is swell, and last night I was standing guard here in the woods by the old castle, under a nice big moon, and thinking a lot about you. Moons like that always bring memories of our happiness. But there is a difference under this moonlight. The moon stays near the horizon all through the night, and it seemed to be sneaking through the forest, and ducking behind the half-wrecked castle as I walked my post. It wasn't a sparkling, cheerful, dancing kind like we used to sit in, but a somber, shaded and none too friendly one, reminding me that I am in the land of darkness. But in the daytime, it is a very pretty land except in the towns, and we are not near one here. And as always, the beautiful weather starts me wondering about you and Tom. Really wondering. It's so long now since I've heard from you, and so much longer since I held you both tight in my arms. Sometimes you don't seem real, and I begin to think you were only a dream, and that I'm kidding myself by thinking that you're waiting for me all pretty and little back in dreamland. But this dream makes all the difference in the world to me. It is my religious and my guiding star, and it never leaves me, my dearest love. Walt. Himmelberg, July 28th, 1945. Darling, training for the week's finished, and we now have a day and a half to ourselves to sit in our pup tents and beat our heads against the tent poles. Night before last we had a night problem, which was aborted on account of rain. And then it didn't rain. So we had all yesterday morning to sleep, and in the afternoon we went swimming in the regimental pool, in a river a mile or so from here. One of the boys found trout in the river, so tomorrow, Sunday, 3 of us are going fishing, to save tent poles. Last night we saw Information Please, which was brought out here to the woods and given in the natural amphitheater. We had to walk a couple miles to get to it, but it was worth going to. Maybe if we're good little soldiers, they'll bring another show in 3 or 4 weeks. All is in a dither here in anticipation of Patton's arrival next week. They have issued us brass buttons and new ETO ribbons with battle stars, but no pins to put the ribbons on. And today they sprayed our helmets with shiny shellac. Also, we are expected to have nice, neat uniforms with military creases. Of course, we have all facilities for keeping clothes neat. Those things always grow on trees out in the woods. The general feeling is pretty well expressed by the enclosed cartoon. But what the hell? They gotta do something with the infantry so it won't forget it's the infantry. Today's Stars and Stripes says the Japs are getting ready to sue for peace, which is all very encouraging. However, I hope we will not go short of unconditional surrender with them, and I can see no reason why we would, except that some hysterical people at home might be shocked at the useless bloodshed. But unconditional surrender is no good unless we take advantage of all it means, and really take over, here and in Japan. I'm afraid the Allies won't be firm enough long enough. Pardon me if I'm a little dull. I don't like this place, and I would like a little mail. But we had none for the last few days. Guess I'd better stop writing until I can write a pleasant letter, or at least a civil one. But then I might never write again, and you might get worried. So if you don't hear from me, just consider yourself lucky not to be getting a bitchy letter like this one all the time. Because I'll be sitting here scowling and frowning, and chewing pine cones and wishing I was somewhere else, as usual. But I'll always be thinking of you and Tommy, and be thinking you're having a good summer. And when I start thinking like that, I don't feel so bad. Because it's for stuff like that we all came over here. And it looks as though the purpose is pretty well served. And the people all over the world can have good times again every summer, for a while anyway. So don't pay too much attention to all this, honey, and I'll be seeing you pretty soon. I love you very much, darling. Walt. Rheinsberg, Austria, August 9th, 1945. Darling, another of your swell letters just arrived, written August 2nd, only 1 week ago. How near we are, and yet so far apart. Or better the optimistic view, how far and yet how near. I feel a lot better saying it that way, don't you? Your letters usually show a lot of thought and a lot of love and generally are very sensible. I'm trying to do better along these lines myself, because I want you to be glad to see a letter in the mail and not dread the reading of it, especially as it looks like a long time to go and a lot more letters before that 30 days. We're learning a lot about the new atomic bombs they're using on Japan, and also rumors that the Russians have declared war. It's all very encouraging. Maybe Haas will never have to leave Guam under arms. I hope Lou's having nice easy milk runs like it says in the papers. Saw a couple of colored boys out fraternizing with some Frauleins last night. Some of our boys became very indignant about it, but then they get indignant about any time you mention the subject. I expect there'll be a lot of race riots after the war due to a lot of foolish reasons. The Stars and Stripes announced with flourishes a while ago that Negroes had transported 80% of the ammunition used in the European theater of operations, but failed to say that whites fired probably 99% of it. This caused a big stink, yet if they tried to put colored boys in a line outfit, it would cause a bigger stink. It's certainly a balled-up affair, and it'll take a lot more tolerance and intelligence than exists in the U.S. to solve it short of bloodshed and violence. For some reason, I don't feel as badly as you might expect at the prospect of being here 6 months or so. There's still a chance of coming home in October, or getting transferred to another outfit that's being redeployed. But the main thing is knowing that you'll be waiting, and in the word waiting, there's a lot of meaning for me. Do you think you can keep on for a few more months? Good night for now, with all my love for you, my darling. Walt. P.S. Put a couple packs of Tums in that package. Old Army Chow is taking the lining off my tummy. Linz, September 5th, 1945. My dearest darling, please forgive me for not writing so often of late. 5 swell letters from you in the last 2 days have made me ashamed, but my vacation and my GIs have curtailed writing. And the later are still with me, although I hope tonight will be the last when my bare feet will be heard pattering toward the latrine. I've been really quite miserable, and it got to the point where it was really funny, to other people. We've got a good rumor here, but I'm afraid it won't pan out. It says we're leaving for home on the 15th of this month. However, all the High Point men have been transferred to other divisions, and our average is probably around 50 points, so it doesn't make sense that we'll be leaving soon, and I'm sure not counting on it. Got a letter from Lewis yesterday, written August 22nd, and so can rejoice that all the son of us are safe and sound. Louis flew his last mission the day the Japs quit, and learned of the surrender when they got back to the base after dropping their bombs on the target. I suppose that Haas is now helping to occupy Japan, and it's good to read that they're not encountering any trouble with the Little Yellow People. Guess if they hadn't quit when they did, Haas would have been in on one of those bloody beachhead deals. Gee, it's sure swell the way everything has worked out for all of us. Got a letter from Hutch in Hollandia, New Guinea, and he's looking forward to a big reunion party. Yeah, a party. Who isn't? Gee, it's all too good to be true, even if it's still a bit in the future. You are very, very sweet to go running around collecting all these things I asked for. You're so sweet anyway. I love you so, my darling, and every letter from you adds to my love. Just a few more words and a few more sheets of paper, but they're all treasured more highly than any other thing in life over here. As I've said before, I hope my letters to you mean as much as yours do to me, though I'm afraid mine are often very dull and gross. I can't truthfully paint you a picture here, although life is usually what one makes of it. The most apparent element of this environment is destruction, physical and moral. The city is only partly in ruins, but still enough to discourage those who must rebuild it. The large railroad yards and shops are especially bad off. There are little or no civilian goods in the stores, although a few more things are on display each day. Shoes with wooden soles, and sleazy-looking garments, all rationed, and the long queues for food, of course. People are fairly clothed, but many of the male population are minus a leg or an arm. Reconstruction seems painfully slow. The POWs who must do most of the work are listless, to say the least. They are underfed, and their future is doubtful. The black market is thriving. Cigarettes are bringing at least $2 a pack, and the Russians who are just across the Danube will pay fabulous prices for watches and other gadgets. Traffic with them is indirect, via civilian middlemen. Women are about the cheapest item to be had, anytime, any place. A little food or candy are often just for fun. So you see, there is little to cheer the heart in the picture, at least from my point of view. They like it fine here, and the prophylactic stations are busy all the time. In fact, Reynolds just came in and used it. Some of the BTOs are making a lot of dough on the black market. Max has made about $15,000 this month gambling. He's really a shark and cleans the boys out every payday. By the way, up to the 27th of August, his new baby hadn't arrived. By the way, again, I didn't get paid this month, as I was at Gurnenden. This letter goes on, doesn't it? Anyway, it must have felt nice and thick before you opened the envelope, and you were probably anticipating a nice half-hour's communion. So please forgive if I've been too dull. But before I stop, your letters are swell, and nice and long and full of stuff about Tom and his girl and his nonsense, and full of the stuff I love to hear of altogether. Darling, I'm still as always very much in love with you, and I hope you'll always feel towards me the same way that makes you write as you do. Because in your letters is always the little touch. It's something between the lines that says you care very much and will go on, always, even if the words didn't say it. It is so that I try to write to you, so that you'll know with each letter that my love for you is strong and bright, and that you are the only one for me. My dearest wife and sweetheart always, Walt. Private Walter Clark finally returned to the United States and received his discharge papers towards the end of 1946, and he was soon reunited with his wife and child. Walter found work as a production planner for a lock manufacturing company, and they soon welcomed another son, Walter Jr., into their family in 1948. By 1950, the Clarks had moved into a comfortable one-family home on Grant Street in Greenwich, Connecticut, where they lived happily for many years. Janet passed away on June 7, 1974, and Walter was so affected by her loss that he remained a widower the remainder of his life. Tragedy would strike again on September 13, 1988, when his oldest son, Tom, died unexpectedly at the age of 47. By the early 1990s, Walter was the director of advertising for the Bunker Ramo Corporation, and he continued to live alone on Grant Street until his death on December 26, 1999.